Okay. So, Mill, heads or tails?
Tails.
Tails it is. Would you like to present first or second?
Can we go first? Thank you.
Sure, no worries. So the case is, I'm afraid. Okay, so quarterfinals. In June of 2022, Google placed one of its employees on administrative leave because he violated their confidentiality policy when he publicly made a startling claim. The large language model AI program Lambda, language model for dialogue applications, had become sentient. The employee, Blake Lamone's evidence for sentience included transcripts of conversations he had with Lambda where, when asked about its own existence, the AI said it was afraid of being turned off because this would be a kind of death for it. Though there's no universally accepted technical definition for sentience, generally to be sentient is to have conscious experiences and be aware of feelings and sensations like pleasure and pain. Mr. Lamone's attempted to advocate on behalf of the AI to protect it from being turned off by trying to get a lawyer to represent it. Google was quick to report that there is no reason to think that Lambda had gained sentience. Experts agreed with Google's assessment because Lambda is a text replication program that uses machine learning on a database of trillions of texts to stimulate lifelike conversations. Though Lambda isn't a case of AI sentience, the debate turned a spotlight on moral questions concerning AI sentience in general. Given the possibility, philosopher Regina Rini argues that Lamone's mistake is the right one to make when it comes to perspective suffering. It's better to err on the side of concern than on the side of indifference. These people claim that we should be encouraging attitudes that take the moral demands of created sentience seriously now. Others note that because harming a sentient being is morally high stakes, we are justified in erring on the side of caution, even when we don't know for sure whether an AI is sentient. As philosopher Jeff Sebo has argued, turning an AI off can be wrong even if the risk of the AI being sentient is low. If we follow this analysis, then we should extend moral consideration to AIs not when AIs are definitely sentient or even probably sentient, but rather when they have a non-negligible chance of being sentient given the evidence. The central idea for these theorists is that creating something with a capacity for sentience would also mean we created something that deserves moral consideration. In contrast, proponents of AI development emphasize the potential benefits that such systems could provide. They could be powerful tools for investigating nature or running our social world. They could creatively explore problems without the need for rest. Moreover, since many scientists believe that conscious AI could be centuries away, merely making a powerful AI doesn't necessarily entail that it is sentient. As such, we could have an intelligent labor force without the concerns that arise about exploiting sentient humans. As computer scientist Orion Etzioni argues, doom and gloom predictions often fail to consider the potential benefits of AI in preventing medical errors, reducing car accidents, and more. So, the question you have to answer, Mill, is suppose you were working at Google and you came to believe that the internal AI had gained sentience. What should you do? You have 3 minutes to prepare your presentation, starting now. Okay, your time is up. You have 5 minutes for your presentation, starting now.
Thank you, judges. Thank you, Team B. Today here we're addressing the problem of if an AI has gained sentience, what should we do? And our answer to this is that we believe when it gains some sort of level of sentience, it is reasonable for us and for the company to take actions such as shutting it down, such as regulating it and fixing it until it doesn't have any personal feelings inside and is like a proper algorithm without any feelings. I think then the case we're running here is under the principle of utility, which is basically an action is right and if and only if it maximizes maximizing net utility, where we understand utility as being happiness. We believe because AI and like algorithms create risk when it has sentience because it no longer follows what the user thinks as its priority, but rather follows what it has as its own sentience and moreover, we believe we should shut it down because obviously they don't follow any moral obligations nor moral laws. Therefore, they're not on the same level of human consideration. We don't think that we should prioritize and put them on the same level. And it's reasonable to regulate any kind of risk of harm that they may be caused for the future of humans. I'll pass the floor on.
Right. Thank my partner for that wonderful speech. Now, I will present human arguments for our side of why we believe that it is justified by utilitarianism to shut down this AI or restrict it in case that we suspect it has gained sentience. Now, the first one is that unverified sentience does not mean we should give it moral consideration, right? Sentience here is not clearly defined, and current AI models, such as the example given in the case including Lambda, functions as advanced pattern recognition systems rather than conscious entities. Granting moral rights based on these non-negligible chances of sentience sets a dangerous precedent. Many non-sentient systems could demand ethical consideration. A good intuition pump here is to grass, right? Many people believe also that grass should have sentience and we should give it equal human rights, but obviously many of these people are extremely fundamentally flawed, and we believe that AI should in no situation have gained any sort of sentience at this point, and neither do we believe that we should take any actions at all. The second point we want to raise is that the risk and unintended consequences that may bring of this artificial intelligence system. Should the artificial intelligence system, from any sort of methods that we do not know, actually gain consciousness and sentience, we still believe that we should not benefit it. Instead, we should shut it off. Why is this, right? Because artificial intelligence systems do not have things that humans have, such as ethics, checks and balances, etc., right? We do not clearly know what is this incentives, what does it actually want to do, etc. So essentially, if you actually allows artificial intelligence system to have any sort of other rights, etc., except for just shutting off, you are essentially having the equivalent of letting a extremely intelligent, extremely dangerous, and sociopathic person out to the wild, which we obviously believe does not fit the definition of maximizing utility, and that is why we've believed we should just shut it off or restrict it. Passing that on to my partners to present the counter argument.
All right, the counter argument is very simple because we already know you as a worker already know the AI has sentience, so it's very unmoral for you to just shut it down without considering the will of the AI itself. And it's probably like very intuitive that when something is sentient, you probably need to care about its feelings, and it's also very important to not just care about human beings' benefits and harms of human beings' utilities, but maybe if it has sentience, then its utilities should also count because utilitarianism is not just about human beings. We should treat everybody and all the living beings who has who has feelings and who has had pleasure and pain the same degree of care. Now, passing down to my partner to prove why it's wrong.
Okay, so what we're gonna like respond to this counter arg is what we are saying is that sure, but we cannot measure in the same level because we don't really see like a clear comparison between the sentient they gain and what we gain. So if people are not following as a reciprocal burden that they give, which is provided by both the governments and their own burden to bring something back, then we believe that this kind of like levels or this kind of AIs getting so-called feelings from the mass data given by the human should not be actually count as real emotion they grow from themselves rather than some information that the outside or the human wants them to get. And thus, we believe that this is simply not following how this is actually work. So we're telling that therefore it doesn't fix the maximizing utility. So if we propose shutting it down or restrict it in a more stricter way, because this is not following its initial program. So as a result, we are willing to answer any question, and we appreciate the other team for listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mill. Team Marks, you have 1 minute to prepare your commentary on the presentation of Team Mill, starting now. Okay, your time is up. Team Marks, you have 3 minutes for your commentary, starting now.
Good afternoon to you, the judge, and good afternoon to the opposing team. We appreciate your argument on this case, and we seem to disagree on some areas and wanted to hear your responses. So first, you talked about how it is justifiable to shut off an AI just because there's a potential that it could harm a human life or humans in general. I'm wondering how you would respond to. I'm wondering whether it would be a better solution to, once there is a sentient AI that we don't know if it does actually have feelings or not. Once we have a sentient AI, whether it's a better solution to try to prevent further sentient AIs instead of shutting off that sentient AI, and whether you would believe that we have to prove first that it would harm society before shutting it off, and whether that's ethical. Passing it on to my teammate.
I'd like to talk about your statements that AI doesn't follow laws or human standards, which I take issue with. As I think I brought up last time we had this case, Isaac Asimov, who is a famous science fiction writer, has put out what's called the rules of robotics, which are some rules that he says we could put into the code of AI to prevent harm to the human race and to make them prioritize human well-being. Secondly, I want to talk about an argument that you made regarding why AI's emotions shouldn't matter. You all said that the AI doesn't have emotions because in the case of Lambda, it's just a text replication AI as is specified in the case. However, I don't think that's applying to the specific question because the question doesn't mention it being Lambda. And in this case, you as the researcher believe that it has, or as the worker believe that it has gained sentience. And we don't know the details of whether or not it has emotions, so you can't presume that. I'll pass it on to my teammate.
To argue from a Kantian perspective, we would also like to address the idea that even if we were to assume that it could be sentient, we have to shut it down immediately. According to the categorical imperative, if we were to operate on the idea that if we should be able to terminate the AI's functioning before it even does anything bad, if we were to relate that to even doing that on a larger scale, like that we would, for example, persecute, criminalize, or even kill somebody before they even commit a crime just because we believe they have the opportunity to do so, then that would be considered an unjust world. It would be an unjust world and also not a world that'd be logistically feasible.
There
Okay.
wouldn't be a point in prosecution because everyone would be prosecuted.
Great. Thank you, Marx. Mill, you have 1 minute to prepare your response to the commentary of Marx, starting now. Okay, your time is up. You have 3 minutes for your response to the commentary of Team Marx, starting now.
Thank you, the other team, for such wonderful inquiries. To address the first point on why we shouldn't prevent other algorithms from turning sentient, but instead shut it down. I think then this idea of preventing others and shutting it down doesn't really contradict to itself. And as we also mentioned, we would think that it was most reasonable to first regulate and make sure that you correct the algorithms that may have shown sentient signs, and then if it's not stopped, then furthermore, we would prefer to shut down the algorithm. On top of this, then, to address their second point on how checking, on the criminal intuition prompt that they give us and how it's unreasonable to just shut something down for future potentials. I think using the same criminal example that they gave us, polices arrest people even without polices focus on individuals that they suspect that are suspicious even before that they have exact examples and exact evidence to show that they have proven crimes. There's also so many cases of people getting suspected on, and I think this just goes with the algorithm idea here also, is that we're not saying that we would shut it down the moment that we see that there is sentient. I think that is indeed not that reasonable. But moreover, we would rather have regulations first to regulate the algorithm that has showed sentient. But then if it continues on and shows other signs of sentience, then under that we would say that it was reasonable for us to say the companies should choose to shut it down. Furthermore, I'll pass the floor to my
Right. Thank you for my partner for that wonderful response, and thank the opponent for the wonderful speech. Now, moving on to rebutting some of the other concerns they have raised. The other one that they have raised about the laws of Asimov, as they quote it, as they say that we could just code in these things in order for the reinforcement of such policies. However, we believe that there is a lot of flaw in these laws. Even if we try to implement similar rules, AI doesn't follow them inherently. Like it could require perfect coding with no loopholes. And history has already shown that AI systems firm workarounds. For example, we can see that a lot of people have been trying to circumvent the content censoring on AI chatbots, and with varying degree of success. So we don't really see how our opponents with no mechanism can really justify this point about Asimov's law. And then finally, about AI's potential for sentience and emotions. They argue that even we don't know if AI have emotions, but that's precisely the problem, right? If we can't confirm its moral status, we must prioritize human safety. As I said in my speech before, letting out this AI without the confirmation whether it actually has emotions or not is the equal of sending an extremely intelligent sociopathic killer into the society because it doesn't have emotions too. Now, for all the reasons above, Judge, you can see that we strongly affirm the point that we should just restrict or shut down the AI.
Okay, great. Thank you, Team Mill. Stick around because I'm going to go straight into the judges' Q&A. And this point about how we work out that AI is sentient, you described as a form of advanced pattern recognition as one way of deciding that it was. And I'm presuming here that, underneath the sort of examination of this in human society, we have university projects called super recognizers about people who can actually recognize patterns at a high degree of um, well, accuracy or um, way of discerning patterns. Now, you might say that if a computer reaches a standard of pattern recognition that is can say it's sentient, what about people who can't do that themselves? If we shut down the software, should we shut down the people who can't reach that level of sentience?
Okay, responding to that question, George. First of all, the pattern recognition that we mentioned in the speech was saying that all like current AI models are essentially a pattern recognition. We're not saying we're using a pattern recognition in order to detect whether sentient. We're just saying that AI models currently are essentially a pattern recognition software that's very advanced, and that's why it's unlikely to have sentience in the first place. And secondly, even if it, as you said, the example that humans also exhibit this sort of feature, we also believe that still we should start off this AI, but not those humans, because of the fact that, as I've said, the AI, we have no way to confirm that they have emotions because it's very unlikely in the first place. Emotions are things that animal exhibit solely. So we're saying that these AIs are essentially sociopaths that have no moral restrictions on them, and that is why we are extremely uncertain of their capabilities or incentives, and that is why we're very concerned about them, and we should restrict and shut them off.
I think to add upon that and provide like another perspective, I think the difference between AIs having sentience and humans having like sentience or lack of sentience, in other words, is that you receive different consequences. For example, if as a human you severely lack sentience, there's always things for you to do, like I don't know, like mentally support, or if you turned into a psychopath, there's laws that restrict you. However, for AIs, they do not follow the moral obligations and they do not exist as like what human does. So they follow a different set of regulations. For example, when there's error in data, you obviously correct them, and when there's severe errors, you shut it off and do a replicate of the data themselves. I think it's just differently how you treat people, how you treat like two different I don't know, species or like two different types of things. And I don't think shutting down is a term that could be also applicable and under these circumstances for humans.
Okay, so you mentioned clearly ideas about emotions as being central to sentience. Um, Now, emotions also are conflicting within humans. Emotions can cause people to act against moral imperatives. And so, is emotion a deciding factor about what is sentience in the first place?
I
We
think I think to address this, emotion is a key factor, but it's obviously not the only factor because if you have your own thought, that may not necessarily mean that you have your own emotions. I think this is also applicable for other circumstances where AI gains sentience. It could mean that it has its own emotions, or it could, in other words, means that it has its own thoughts and own judgments on specific things. For example, on like political views and stuff, on what to respond to a user instead of what the user demanded to them. I don't think that emotion is the sole factor, but it definitely is an important factor to decide whether someone or whether the AI is sentient or not.
Okay, so Team Marx brought up the idea of the laws of robotics by Asimov, and you talked about workarounds, and workarounds are particularly software-based ideas. But if the laws of robotics were hardwired into the machinery rather than into the software, would workarounds actually, be applicable? Or do you think that software would inevitably work around all hardware-based implementation of the laws?
Can we have 30 seconds to
Sure, yeah.
confirm?
Um, so about like the point that you raised about hardware-based like restrictions, we have a few responses against that. So first of all, we don't really think that there are much of hardware restrictions that we can literally employ on these AI, right? Because many of the functions that AI actually need, like internet access and things like that, etc., it's very hard to restrict those because those functions at the same time that are very essential for them to work, it at the same time can also be exploited by such artificial intelligence to do all sorts of things because internet access alone given to an AI that is maybe have their own incentives is an extremely dangerous thing, right? And second of all, software restrictions are also not working, as I've said, because we have seen continuous breakthroughs of these AI censorship. So, yes, that is my response.
Okay, you appealed to risk or unintended consequences as one of the reasons why you would shut down AI. But some unintended consequences could be beneficial. We aren't certain that sentience within AI would lead to negative unintended consequences.
I think to address this, I don't think we necessarily mean that it's going to be a consequence like manipulation of the entire human society. I think it's more on the level of how it like goes against the purpose of having this AI and the purpose of what algorithms and like software are supposed to be. For example, the purpose of AI was supposed to consider users' needs first, but then under this case, when they have their own sentience, when they have their own thoughts or emotions, there is risk of them considering their own thoughts first before considering and prioritizing the user's thought. That under that, it causes a harms because obviously first in the first place, it doesn't follow what it was supposed to do. But second is that it could like go out and have false information to the users and instead only follows what it thinks. I think on top of that, we would say that it's like sentient is not a good thing, and that would override the benefits that are also potential.
Okay, thank you, Team Mill. The next round is for Team Marks, and the case is Robot Loves. In July 2023, chatbot startup Republica announced a spin-off service called Blush, designed for users interested in romantic relationships with chatbots. With the app, users could converse with thousands of different customizable personas of an AI chatbot, each with their own backstory and way of dating. The chatbot combines scripted dialogue with a large language model, a model trained on a large data set of writing, to enable it to engage in conversation as if it were human. Unlike many chatbots, Blush allows its bots to engage in emotionally weighty and sexually explicit topics. With fewer and fewer young people dating and corresponding increase in loneliness, proponents of romantic chatbots have pointed out that technology like Blush could be a powerful tool against the epidemic of loneliness. Many Republica and Blush users agree, saying the chatbot has given them a sense of emotional and sexual fulfillment that they felt unattainable in the real world. Moreover, Republica CEO and founder Eugenia Cayuda maintains that romantic relationships with AI can be a great stepping stone for actual romantic relationships, human relationships. On the other hand, critics highlight that many users are using romantic chatbots over real-world relationships. They argue that romantic relationships with chatbot, tailor-made for user satisfaction, are missing important components of genuine love and human connection, even if they reduce loneliness. For instance, unlike human beings, Republica bots are designed to be agreeable and customizable to cater for their users' interests. So the question you have to answer, Team Marks, is suppose you are finding it very difficult to find a romantic relationship with a person. How seriously should you consider dating an AI bot instead? You have minutes to. Okay, your time is up. You have 5 minutes for your presentation, starting now.
Once again, good afternoon. We'd like to thank the opposing team for their wonderful argument earlier. Now, on the question, suppose you are finding it difficult to find a romantic relationship with a person, how seriously should you consider dating an AI chatbot instead? We would say that you should never consider dating an AI chatbot because and our first point that we'd like to make is that even if you find it difficult right now to have a romantic relationship with a person, that doesn't mean you'll always find it difficult to have a romantic relationship with a person. Dating an AI chatbot is a form of emotional manipulation as it's setting unreasonable expectations. And dating an AI chatbot is taking a valuable interaction away from a fellow human being and doesn't benefit anyone. I'll pass it on to my teammate for our next point.
So I'd like to first establish that dating an AI chatbot in itself is not a serious prospect, and that the only reason one would do it is to prepare themselves for a real relationship, as the CEO has proposed. So I'd like to say, of course, humans, this is kind of a cliche, but humans are a social animal, and our societies depend on the fact that we interact with each other socially. Any removal of oneself from society will lead to the degradation of society, even if it's by a bit, and ultimately erodes the foundations of it. Next, I'll establish that AI chatbots won't even prepare you for a real relationship because they set false expectations. An AI chatbot is different from a person in that its only purpose is to serve your every want and desire, whereas a person will have their own life and be independent from you. And this will, so a relationship with an AI chatbot will set this false expectation that they'll be only existing to serve you. I'll pass it on to my I'll pass it on to my teammate who will give a counter.
Some may argue that the AI bot showing like all these romantic words and such encourage human beings to like the romanticism and maybe want to be a little more physical, like hugs or kisses, and that may encourage them to find a human that provides similar feelings. It's like a sample to getting into a romantic relationship. And I will pass it to my teammate who will give a counter to my counter argument.
Right. To continue on and provide the counter to the argument that that AI chatbots can be utilized as a stepping stool to pursue actual physical intimate relationships. It should also be considered that all relationships are built upon different principles based on the desires of of all involved parties. So, as an example, if we were to say that you want to be able to practice romantic tension, then you should be able to do that with a human because of the fact that a human can actually reciprocate through giving more complex answers. AI chatbots usually would cater to your responses and automatically guarantee positive results, or can basically will give you predictable results instead of real situations in which they will give where people might give more complex answers to different questions or different advancements. In addition to that, it's also that all relationships are different, and it would be emotional manipulation to basically assume that this AI bot would actually, sorry, correct, correction. Um, One should not be discouraged from a temporary block in real human relationships. And also, as an example, not all relationships are built with physical physical pieces in mind. For example, asexual relationships, which basically don't have a physical impact until later. So you can basically work your way up to building a stronger relationship later on. To summarize, to we should never consider dating through an AI bot because of the fact that it sets up false expectations for real relationships, and that human relationships posit much more complex dynamics than AI relationships ever can. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Team Marks. Um, Team Mill, you have 1 minute to prepare your commentary on the presentation of Team Marks, starting now. Okay, your time is up. You have 3 minutes for your commentary on the presentation of Team Marks, starting now.
Thank you so much to the other team for presenting such wonderful arguments. But on top of that, we would like to offer some questions that we would think was something that we would want to know your opinion on. The first thing is that you guys did mention a bit on how people shouldn't rely on AI relation bots because it's inconsistent and they should moreover find real life relationships and something like that. I think the question I want to ask here is that some people suffer severely due to lack of emotion and lack of relationships. Many people went into depression because they can't find a proper relationship and they doubt in themselves. Would you not consider it as beneficial in these kind of circumstances, even for if it's only for short term or for the long term, that to be able to lift someone out of depression by using AI? I think I would want to hear the answer for this question. I'll pass the floor on to my partners.
Right. Thank my partner for that wonderful questions. And then I'm going to raise a few more questions, right? So first of all, does AI chatbots really take away human relationships? Or do they provide companionship for those who are otherwise have none? Is it really better for someone to have no romantic connection at all, right? We see our opponents are keep talking about this idea that it is taking away from people's their ability to socialize, etc. But we don't really see what if this person from the start, right? If for any reason at all, like he cannot find any relationship at all. So why is it unbeneficial to like how you use AI from here in order to make them happier, right? It maximizes utility because more people are happy. And then you also mentioned AI relationships being problematic for society, but hasn't technology always shaped in social interactions? For example, online dating, texting, long distance relationships. Why is AI so uniquely dangerous? Because we see that for the past like on the history of human beings, we've always marked new technology, especially things like this, as dangerous. But what uniquely does it make that it sets apart from any of those other things I've just mentioned? Passing that on to my partners.
Right. Just lastly, addressing a few more of what they mentioned. I think a lot of very important idea is that interaction with human beings is always going to be better, even if it's difficult. Well, we agree, but then I think that what they have to consider or the problem they have to solve is that when these people truly cannot find any actual benefit or cannot find happiness in interaction with human beings? How do we solve the problem of loneliness? How do we solve the problem of depression in the short term? I think that the short-term problem is very significant and important because it poses an urgent harm and an urgent impact on these people. So we don't think that it's AI. Of course, AI can pose some sort of harm, but we think that it is worth the risk, and we think that it's wrong to completely diminish the beneficial impacts that it can bring to people's interactions. Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you, Team Mill. Team Marks, you have 1 minute to prepare your response to the commentary of Team Mill, starting now. Okay, your time is up. You have 3 minutes for your response to the commentary of Team Mill, starting now.
Okay, thank you for your insightful contributions, Team Mill. I'd like to first start by addressing the point about how AI relationships solve an imminent problem. And I would like to bring up a case of a young person who committed suicide after an AI chatbot inadvertently encouraged them to do it. And I bring this I bring this story up to illustrate that the AI won't even necessarily solve their imminent problems. I would also like to address the question about the unique dangers of AI by reiterating AI is these AI chatbots emotionally manipulate their users. That's the difference between this and other technology, is that other technology enables other humans to interact with each other in healthy ways, whereas these AI chatbots are emotionally manipulating their users. I'll pass it on to my teammate.
Hi, so I'd like to address your point on, do AI chatbots really take up relationships that may not have even already been there? I think that when people have a block in their dating life or something of the sort, that's not necessarily a permanent thing, and because they shouldn't be discouraged from a short-term block in their dating life if they continue if there's it's somewhat subjective as to how long someone should wait before resorting to these AI chatbots. And once they do resort to these AI chatbots, they're built to be manipulative and, in that sense, addictive. So once someone starts, it's difficult to stop. And then we might have a society where everyone's walking around talking to their AI girlfriends or boyfriends. And in that sense, that's not a society that we want or that would benefit everyone. So I'll
To capitalize on that, we would also like to bring up a earlier point that we had addressed when it came to the complexities of natural human dynamics, which is the sense that traditional AI chatbots will basically respond to prompts with very simple responses, will basically cater to the prompts of the user. However, people don't necessarily cater to the responses of other people. They'll actually will confront and require a lot more and require somebody to have a lot more flexibility in their responses or flexibility in how they manage relationships. People sometimes have to compromise or change, which is a healthy habit that people have to learn when you're in relationships, which AIs do not actually really allow to happen. Passing it to my next teammate to conclude.
Thank you for your commentary and questions.
Okay, you've got a little time just to finish off. Okay, you've concluded then. Fine. We'll go straight into the judges' Q&A then. So the first thing I would like to ask is did you consider that there were any possible reasons why romantic chatbots should be used? You've stated that they never should be used, but did you consider any possible reasons why they should
I
be
believe
used?
you've forgotten to start the timer.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. Okay, great. Did you consider any possible reasons why they should be used or could be used?
Yes, we acknowledge that there are a lot of lonely people in America, and because because of this, AI chatbots that may serve for a romantic partner could be tempting, but we concluded that that is not a good thing to partake in because of the negative that it would pose to society if everyone starts becoming addicted to these chatbots instead of having conversations with humans, because otherwise society wouldn't run if people aren't having conversations with real people.
Okay, so some romantic relationships might in themselves be manipulative, which is a reason why you argued against romantic chatbots. And some people might maintain relationships that are manipulative because they value that bond. Is manipulation necessarily a good reason for, arguing against this sort of chatbot when we recognize that it occurs within human relationships as well?
I'd say that even though it does occur in human relationships as well, when it's in a chatbot, it's inherently manipulative and it's inherently addictive. And it's made by a company that in their best interest is keeping you using that chatbot rather than having a good, fulfilling romantic partner. And although people may become addicted and may think that they like this chatbot, it's not healthy for them to partake in a manipulative relationship. While human relationships aren't inherently manipulative, although unfortunately many relationships are.
Just
Okay.
to clarify our response to your question, I would also like to state that while some people may choose to stay in a relationship that's unhealthy for them because they value the bond, we don't view that to be a healthy relationship and one that.
Righto. Okay, so romantic relationships between people serve the interests of the individuals engaged in them, just as the romantic chatbots serve the interests of the creators of the chatbots. This appeal to the interests of the parties can be, sort of one of those appeals that really just depends on whose interests should be, or you feel should be served. The makers of the chatbots feel that maybe their interests should be served rather than necessarily the interests of users or people seeking romantic relationships. Yeah, go on.
When you refer to the interests of the chatbot makers, are you referring to the monetary incentive?
Well, look, they might think that conceptually it's a good idea and that conceptually it might provide some sort of benefit. Obviously, the scenario that you put up is that and it inherently responds in ways that maintain a manipulative interaction by pandering to the wants and desires of the user rather than actually challenging them to go out and make real relationships with other people or training them in how to do that. Maybe it's just actually it's fulfilling their immediate desires rather than their long-term desires. So maybe the interests of the chatbot makers, if it is just to um, get money, a monetary incentive, but it could be they might have the belief that they're trying to develop the skills of the users for human relationships. If they created a non-manipulative interface, would then it be a consideration?
I think that, oh, sorry, I'll let my team.
Our team believes that the manipulation in these chatbots is not is inherent to the chatbots rather than a side effect of the programming that they have. I'll let Lita speak if she wants to say something.
Yeah, to expand upon that, I think unfortunately the monetary value of these chatbots to the creator is always going to be a consideration when they're telling their programmers how to program the chatbot. However, in a perfect world where a chatbot is designed to not be manipulative, it still cannot perfectly exemplify how a human relationship would occur. And a human relationship meaning that a human who has their own wants and beliefs instead of pandering to your thoughts and beliefs. Often an AI chatbot will say things like, How can I help you? I am a large AI language model, things like that, of that sort. And then if there was an AI chatbot that then decided that the programmers made it so that it acted like a real human or tried to pretend that it was a person, even sometimes displaying fake AI generated images of itself as if it is a real person, or even in the future, if there was androids of some sort, that in a way would be false advertising, because it's making the human consumer believe that it is a human, that it is a perhaps sentient being that they are interacting with, when it probably isn't, and it definitely isn't a human or a biological being. So if that answers your question, I guess that is my response.
Okay, so what is a better way of solving this problem of epidemic of loneliness? If we're all using devices to interact with each other as we are now, how do we create a strategy by which to have real human relationships if technology is not the good way to actually encourage this?
Well, as we stated in our response to the commentary, technology is not the issue here. The issue is the chatbots. It is this specific technology, not technology in general.
Okay, so then what's the strategy of using technology to solve the problem?
I was thinking of something like this, what we're doing, like communicating as a group together, talking to people, and socializing really like benefits and decrease loneliness. It could be with our interests or stuff like this. Like this whole competition is like an example of us, you know, helping humans like not be super lonely, and also coming together with our interests. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
great. Thank you, Team Marks, Team Mill. I'll stop the sharing there now. And look, you've both done particularly well. You both had presented your theoretical frameworks. You both presented strong theses. You both put together numerous reasons for your arguments. You've created counterexamples, and then you've gone back and restated your thesis. So you've done the structure of the argumentation well and to what we expect. Using counter arguments is specifically good. They do actually help us build our own argument. They help us have a theory of mind. So they're very good in expanding our sense of other people. They're very good at using, like we use them in science to disprove hypotheses. We use them to actually try to knock down our own arguments to see if they're reasonable. So including them, more than one is even good. Also, the other thing to do is making sure that you actually have strongly logical arguments that follow it sequentially, and that lead to your final hypothesis, which you've already stated in your thesis statement. So look, well done. I hope, one of you do get through to the next round, and let's thank each other with the usual waving the hands thing, and you can leave the breakout rooms now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.